Okay, welcome, dear participants. So, this particular session is delivered by myself. Uh, as you know, I am a coordinator of this particular event, and let me briefly introduce myself. I am Dr. Shriram S. Sonavane. I am Associate Professor, Chemical Engineering, Vishweshwaraya National Institute of Technology, Nagpur. Uh, I have been working in the institute from the year of 2008, and I am in the research field of nanotechnology and allied aspects of nanotechnology. So I'm working on nanoseparations, nanocatalysis, nanofluids, very in various applications, then process modeling and simulation. Uh, as far as my publication is concerned, let me introduce more than 100 publications in SCI reputed international journals. Till date, more than 5 patents have been published and granted. More than 1.5 crores projects of research kind via various agencies like DST, CSIR, AICT, MNRE have been handled. Almost 7 PhDs have been produced, and they are working in very different organizations, includes industry, educationals, and research. Two research scholars are now ongoing their work, and so many administrative responsibilities I have chaired till date. So this is fine as far as my introductory introduction is concerned. My today's topic was, dear participants, effective use of nanofluid as a coolant in PVT system. I thought of on this particular topic whether this topic is relevant for the nanotechnology. Although this PVT is there, so many applications of nanotechnology is there. But as far as the sessions are concerned, which I have personally heard, because I have been associated with this AICT right from beginning, and myself and my team is my two research scholars, Mr. Parag and Malika, is all the time seated here in the control room and watching, observing all the talks. Unless we came to know what is nano, unless we came to know properties, characteristics of nano, unless we came to know what is nanofluids, unless we came to know the different aspects of nanotechnology, it is not worthful to go ahead with the applications, what I suppose. So I have slightly changed or alter my title that nanofluids, a sustainable alternative for thermal system. Although thermal system refers in so many ways, thermal systems wherever been used, lot of one can think that pollutants may be emitted. One can think lot of environmentally it may affecting. One may think in a very wide variety of fashions. But the theme of our particular All India Council for Technical Education's ATAL Faculty Development Program is nanotechnology for sustainable development towards green process synthesis, or nanotechnology for green process synthesis towards sustainable development. So I thought that a nanofluid is a one part of nanotechnology. Nanotechnology itself is a very wide term. As far as sustainable alternative is concerned, I feel and I suppose that nanotechnology is really a worthful technology and is really a sustainable alternative to the environment. What I mean, sustainable alternative to the environment, is this particular nanotechnology is never ending technology. We can explore so many applications with the help of nanotechnology. Wherever you find the applications, as per your own convenience, you can explore applications of nanotechnology. How we can explore applications of nanotechnology? What are the prime factors we must consider? What is nanostructure? What is nano devices? What is nano size, scale, and how we must define it? How we must identify it? How nanotechnology, nanoscale is different from all other scales, that needs to be discussed. Property of nanotechnology needs to be discussed. And what I suppose is this particular vital part must be included in the lecture talk. As far as solar energy is concerned, you can say this is one of the greatest application for this topic of nanofluids, because as far as the energy production is concerned, energy consumption is concerned, there is lot of alternatives available, but that alternative is whether leading us towards a greenery approach? No. So what approach is leading towards us towards a green synthesis, keeping in view the nano, because nano itself is a novel word nowadays, which I feel that the researcher, it may be harsh one for somebody, but nowadays the researcher who is not exploring nano is a downtrodden researcher, because nanotechnology is such a vast field, from anything, from television, from hair to the nail. As far as our living uh, standards is concerned, whatever equipments we are using from hair to the nail, we can make it more cost effective, more attractive, more stable with the help of nanotechnology, because we are basically altering its shape of the material. Altering shape of the material will alter the property of the material. So I could say this may be my introductory remark for this one. So the question comes, which nano should we worry about and why? One will ask me that, sir, why nano? There is a time scale, weight scale, length scale, but which nano should be worried? So as far as time scale is concerned, dear participants, so time scale is varying from nano to, one minute, something is missing. The time scale is varying from nano to zepto, that is from 10 raised to minus 9 to 10 raised to 21. So even though fraction of time, we often said fraction of time, fraction of second, we often said just a minute, I'm just coming. What happens with that? So your activity may change, that quickly I'm coming, or in a fraction of second I'm coming. So what else is changing and what else is affecting? Nothing, I said. So the things which maybe worry about, I don't feel so in time scale. So a lot of things maybe worry about, because we cannot explore time scale for exploring certain application. As far as the weight scale is concerned, let us go to the weight scale. If the material is light or heavy, the material is light or heavy from nanoscale, from lightest material which we can explore, but lightest than lightest. So beyond Yocto, 10 to minus 24 meter, if the material is light, what will happen? So as far as weight is concerned, material may be light, dust particle, anything may be light or heavy. That is no problem. But if the length scale changes, if suppose let us look at this particular slide, if the length scale changes, it goes towards 10 raised to minus 10. But again, it reflect back to 10 raised to minus 9 meters. What it means? So the last particle size is called an atom. The last particle size is atom, and again it reverts back to nano. It means if a scale is changed, it means the length, suppose it changes of the any material, structure is changing. If structure is changing, its physical, chemical, all properties are changing. So depending upon our application, we can explore that properties, change in properties of the material. We can incorporate that particular material for our specific application purpose and produce that thing. Now, the next thing will be proposed that, after having a specific application of that particular material, after changing its size, scale changing means we are changing basically size. So certain property exhibits. That means ceramics may be rubbery, flexible, gold may become a liquid, rubber may be become a metal. So lot many things we can expect. So unexpected can be expect if the length scale varies, because length scale varies means if the shape varies, sizes varies, structure varies, properties are varying. So the length scale is important as far as the scales are concerned, and the answer is which scales to be worried. So depending upon these all scales, I feel as far as my solution is concerned, we must worry about the length scale. So different items are classified as far as their scales are concerned, length scales are concerned. You can see at the bottom. So the finest element in the universe is atom, and that size is in angstrom. Then the next smallest particle is nano. I had a good example with me, but I have not considered here in this particular slide. It is very good example. So power of 10, you can also Google the things and you can go for the power of 10. You will come to know that how powerful is the power of 10. If the 000 changes, and if we go into minus 10 raised to minus 1, 10 raised to minus 2, 3, 10 raised to minus 4, 10 raised to minus 5, minus 6, minus 6, minus 9, minus 10, what happens basically? How we can imagine, how we can see, how we can maneuvering items by items together, material to material together, precisely, so precisely to explore our application. And that is very, very important. So as far as the nanoparticle NP is concerned, so itself it defined that the material, the shape, size or length scale which fallen in between 1 to 100 nanometer, it may be referred to as a nanoparticle. Then the next material IgG, then all the viruses nowadays we are observing and feeling the very important enemy in the world or universe, that is COVID virus. So all the viruses are coming in between 100 to 230 nanometer. Now the experts are there who can imagine the virus's size and the COVID virus size, but as far as my knowledge is concerned, all viruses are falling under 100 to 230 nanometers. So all bacteria are falling under 1 to 5 micrometer. Nucleus of mammalian cells are 3 to 5 micrometer. And if you see our red blood cell that are falling under 7 to 8 micrometer. Eigenmann in 1999 stated, so we can imagine that long back, the scientists have defined nanotechnology in a very different manners. So Eigenmann was the first person who stated a magical point on the length scale. Actually, the Richard Feynman was the first person who something said about nanotechnology or the possibility of the nanotechnology or the possibility of the smallest thing on the universe. But Eigenwang in 1999 has stated that a one magical point on the length scale, or this is the point where the smallest man-made devices meet the atoms and molecules of the natural world. That is what Eigenwang has stated. And this is very great man. As far as my uh, view is concerned, this is very great man as far as nanotechnology, who have defined nanotechnology. In his first lecture at Caltech in Physical Society meeting at America, Richard Feynman has stated in his talk, December 29, 1959, there is plenty of room at the bottom. What he said, there is plenty of room at the bottom, and everybody laugh at him. You know what you are saying? Are you becoming mad? Where are there plenty of rooms? There are only one room. But he was talking about the possibility of molecular rearrangement. He was talking about possibility of atomic rearrangement. He was talking about the possibility of smallest particle, which is becoming a room, which is becoming a room. That means if we're sitting in one particular room, there will be plenty of room. It means there is plenty of nanomaterial. One particular material or one particular particle will create its separate room. He wanted to talk about. So a lot of people laugh at that particular times, but he never mind. But we recall him today also as far as the definition of nanotechnology is concerned. He stated the principles of physics, as far as I can see, do not speak against the possibility of man viewing things atoms by atoms. He was telling the atom by atom, we can have a possibility in the future to man view atom by atom. Later, Eric Drexler has stated nanotechnology is the principle of atom manipulation, atom by atom. So now itself in this particular era, we cannot imagine to move atom by atom. So let us take a task that how can we move atom by atom. So chemist can do, but a lot of things will be required. A lot of possible machineries are required to find out the atoms and maneuvering atoms by atom as per our own convenience. So if we deal with the atoms, nanoparticles, lot of many things may be solved because once we can see it, we can modify it as per our own convenience. So nanotechnology is the principle of atom manipulation, atom by atom, through control of structure. We can control its structure because we can see it. Once we can see it, we can control it. Of matter at the molecular level, it entails the ability to build molecular systems with atom by atom precision. That means control is possible, precision is possible, and which yields a variety of nanomachine. That is what Eric Drexler has stated. Taking the clue from him and Richard Feynman, in IBM Research Laboratory, 1989, this fellow, Don Igler becomes the first person to move atoms that time. And still you can see this logo on every IBM machine. IBM still have not changed this logo, IBM. So what he has done basically, he has put together 25 Zenon atoms and he has manipulated these atoms atom by atom together and formulate a IBM logo and formulate IBM logo. So this is the, once we can see, we can control it, we can precisely move it here and there as per our own consistency. So Don Igler has also created his own magic of formulating IBM logo. So the question comes, is this nanotechnology? Is nanoscience just seeing and moving really small things? Yes. But it's also a whole lot more properties of nanomaterials change at the nanoscale. ये तो है ही, that is there. We can maneuvering things one by one as per our own convenience. But besides that, we can also do a lot more things, and we can also alter the material properties at nanoscale. So before going ahead, if somebody asks us that even if we talk like anything, advanced thing, and advanced things, it is becomes very, very important that do we know what is nanostructure? Do we know what is nano device? Do we know which is nanomaterial? No. That is why this particular slide, I suppose, is very, very vital and important. What is nanostructure? हम लोग nanostructure किसको कहेंगे? If we generally, as a layman, we talk, oh, it is made up of nanostructure. But what is nanostructure? So it is defined based on their geometrical dimensions. With reference to an external reference system, a narrow definition has been constituted. At least two dimensions should be below 100 nanometer. For any structure, any system, any device, at least two dimensions, if suppose they are falling below 100 nanometer, we can call it as a nanostructure, right? And later then scientists deliberated and they said that if suppose two dimensions are not below 100 nanometer and only one dimension is below 100 nanometer, so what we can say to that particular structure? Yeah. And scientists deliberated and they stated that one dimension below 100 nanometer, and if the second dimension is also below 1 micrometer, we will also suppose it or refer it as a nanostructure. So there is narrow definition and extended definition as far as nanostructure is concerned. So it's very clear that at least two dimensions should be below 100 nanometer, and at least if suppose not two dimensions are below 100 nanometer, at least one dimension should be below 100 nanometer, and the second dimension should be below 1 micrometer is referred to as a nanostructure. Now you will say, sir, what is nano device? What is nano systems? Now Tata has launched car, nano car, nano car, nano car. Was it really a nano? Somebody might have think. You people referred it as a nano car. Tata has also, but Tata stated that this is just a name. Don't go by technical definition. Because there was nothing nano in that car. Only the size is small in the car segment. That is why he referred it as a nano car. But if suppose we wanted to define nano device, so how will you define nano device? Basically, at least one functional component is a nanostructure. फंक्शनल करने वाला कोई भी एक कंपोनेंट अगर उस डिवाइस में रहा, जैसे इन द ट्रांसमिशन इलेक्ट्रॉन माइक्रोस्कोपी, इन द स्कैनिंग इलेक्ट्रॉन माइक्रोस्कोपी, atomic force microscopy, in this particular at least one functional component, the scanning tip is made up of multi-wall carbon nanotubes or carbon nanotubes. At least one functional component should be made up of nanostructure. And again, nanostructure, what is nanostructure? We must recall that at least two dimensions should be below 100 nanometer. Otherwise, or one dimensional should be below 100 nanometer and one should be below 1 micrometer. So at least what is definition of nano device? At least one functional component is a nanostructure is referred to as nano device. And what is nanosystems? Nanosystem should consist of several nano devices that are of importance for the functioning of the whole system. So the nanosystem should consist of several nano devices that are of importance for the functioning of the whole system is we could refer to as a nanosystem. As far as nanomaterials are concerned, you could have seen the scale is divided into nanoscale, microscale, milliscale. So this type of scale is there. Depending upon their length, we could refer it as a size. Depending upon their size, all the material which you could see is divided on this particular scale as nanoscale material, microscales material, and the milliscales material. So right from ant to the 5 atoms of silicon, and here if you could see right from head of pin to the carbon nanotubes that is made up of 2 nanometric diameters, all atoms, even our DNA strands. If you see our DNA strands that are two nanometers around, then if you could see the human hair size, one human hair size is 10 to 50 nanometer wide, red blood cell 2 to 5 micrometer, and accordingly, if you could see dust mite, we could easily see dust mite. It is of 200 micrometer. So in this way, there is a scale. So in which scale the material is falling under. So that is important. Now, atoms, the building block. Do you remember that everything is made up of atom? Don't you? Yeah. Everything is made up of atom. Even we also made up of atom. Why? If you trace our origin from where we are originated, that was an atom because it's a material. So you do remember that everything is made up of atom, don't you? Yeah. A stone, a pen, a video game, a TV, a dog, and you too, that is I too, everything too, are formed by atoms. So atoms are the building blocks. Atoms are the building block, nothing beyond atom. Atoms are molecules. Atom builds molecule to form material. Now, bottom up approach. From everything is originated from atom. So we are also originated from atom because atoms builds molecule. We are being builded. So छोटे छोटे से लेके हम लोग माँ के पेट से लेके बड़े हो रहे इतने लंबे हो गए अभी क्योंकि हमारी लेंथ स्केल बढ़ गई. So atom builds molecule or form material. So nanotechnology deals with manipulation of atoms and or molecules to produce material, devices, and your machines. As far as understanding of effects is concerned, as far as understanding the effect is concerned, so depending upon the scale, this is suppose scale centimeter, millimeter, micrometer, nanometer, and angstrom. This is the scale. On material, different effects exhibits. On material, different effects exhibit. So as far as centimeters material is concerned, so the material which is falling under this particular length scale, centimeter length scale, on that material, gravitational force exists. That means gravity effect is exist, frictional effects exist, combustion effects exist. Right? If you again go down millimeter scale, so millimetric level material, if the material's length or shape and size is of millimeter, so gravitational, frictional, and combustion forces or effects are exhibits. Additionally, they exhibits electrostatic effect. They exhibit electrostatic effects. And what is electrostatic? That everybody knows, the force between particles that are caused by their electric charges. And if you go down, this one additional force is exhibiting on the material from centimeter to millimeter. Again, go down on micrometric material, micrometer, 1 micrometer, right? Electrostatic force will be there on the material. Two more forces are added or exhibiting. Van der Waals force. Van der Waals is the weak force that presents on the material when it is finer, 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 and finer. And one is Brownian force. Brownian is the random molecular movement of the particle. Brownian is the motion of the particle. It is random molecular movement of the particles. These two additional forces are added on when the material goes from centimeter to the micrometer. Now again go to nanometer. If you see nanomaterial, electrostatic force will be there. That means forces between particles that are caused by their electric charges, that will be there with the material. But additionally, Van der Waals and Brownian will also there. But one additional effect it will exhibit, that the material will behave like a quantum. What the term exhibited, quantum mechanics. The material will behave like a quantum. And what is quantum? Particle will behave dwell-like particle, dwell-like behavior. Means one particle you will observe dwell-like. Means you could see that particular particle is traveling here and there. One particle will be there, but dwell-like behavior. Okay, so dwell particle-like and wave-like behavior. It will travel like a wave, just like wave is traveling. It is travel like a wave, and their behavior and interactions of energy and matter becomes very, very vital. at this quantum level when the materials is in nanometer. And if the material goes again finer to finer and finer to the angstrom level, only one effect is taking place besides all these effects, and that effect is quantum mechanics effect. That effect is quantum mechanics. So this particular quantum mechanics is a very wide branch, lot of research, lot of aspects are there as far as quantum mechanics is concerned. So this is particularly a branch of mechanics that deals with the mathematical description of motion and interaction of subatomic particles. So basically motion and interaction of subatomic particles is exhibiting, incorporating the concepts of quantization of energy, wave particle duality, the uncertainty principle and the corresponding principles is applied as far as quantum mechanics is concerned when the material is possesses angstrom size, that is 10 to minus 10 meter. Dear participants, as far as the production process is concerned, everybody is taking care of production, whether they have a contribution in a research field or academic field, from any, right, from engineer, scientist, doctor, or anybody, they are contributed to this particular production process because somebody is going to do their research in the laboratory. That research output may be adopted by the industry, and industry person is then giving you the best suitable products as per your conveniency and as per the people's choice need, as per the people's choice they are producing the product. But all persons role are very, very important. So which product is to select, that is depends upon the customers, and if you attract the customer, you must have to think about this particular production process, which is very, very vital. So what is the role of basically industry people or chemical engineer or any engineer? What is the role of engineer? Basically engineer's role is to convert cheaper raw material into a finished good product. The basic role of chemical engineer or any engineer in the chemical industry or any production industry for the process is they have to convert the raw material, and the cheaper raw material means waste to the wealth. Whatever concept is there, how can we make a value added product from the waste? That waste is your raw material and your value added product is your product. So that you have to convert cheaper raw material through various processes. Processes may be physical processes, physical and chemical, So unit operation and unit processes. This is particularly referred to as unit operation and unit processes. So you need to convert this cheaper raw material into a finished good product through various processes. Okay, and this particular processes is being done in industry. Is being done in industry. Now, let us move towards our topic and concentrate towards topic. As far as nanotechnology, I am hoping all participants might have clearly understand. Those who are not also of that particular field of nanotechnology, I am confident enough that they must have clear idea about nanotechnology. Now, we are moving nanofluids and slowly we will move to the applications of nanofluids towards uh, the energy production. Now, what are nanofluids? Nanofluids are engineered colloidal suspensions of nanoparticles. Nanofluids are engineered colloidal suspensions of nanoparticle which are in the range of 1 to 100 nanometer in a base plate. Now you will say, sir, why the word is mentioned engineered colloidal suspension? So I will give you a task. You take a glass of water and you add any मिट्टी डाल दो उसमें, बाहर के छोटे छोटे पत्थर उठा के है वो डाल दो, क्या होगा? Add outside mud into that water, क्या होगा? Will that be a nanofluid? No. That is why it is referred specifically and mention the word. It is engineered. Engineered means solid will be there, liquid will be there. By layman, if you add both and combine this, it will not create a nanofluid. Nanofluid is engineered colloidal means you must have see the compatibility of this particular solid into liquid. You have to also see the compatibility of liquid and solid. Then and then only it will get mixed with each other. What does it mean compatibility? The surface forces of any material is hardly accepting any foreign material to add into it. That is mean by compatibility. That means water will not allow anything to get add into it. Even though it allows anything to get add into it, I don't think it will give you that sort of property what we desired for. That is what we must to treat the material. We go for surface treatment of the material. We need to see to the material whether that material is of proper properties or not. That material is exhibiting thermal conductivity or not. That material is exhibiting a proper shielding or not. That material is exhibiting a proper specific mm, uh, parametric representation or not. So everything needs to be considered. That is why it has stated that nanofluids are engineered colloidal suspension of nanoparticles which are in 1 to 100 nanometer into a base fluid. And if you combine this together via various other parametric controlling strategies, okay, you are getting nanofluids. So it's not like that something you will add to one fluid, so it will settle down. So that is not nanofluid. Nanofluid is also should be stable. Stable, it means that if you say now a sanitizer, so sanitizer's colors you will see that throughout from top to the bottom, the color is looking very bright and uniform. But if you add color and after adding it will settle down. So bottom portion looks to be a green and top portion looks to be very clean. That is not stable fluid. That is what I'm telling you. Stability is very important. Okay. So that color should be uniformly distributed all over and the life of that particular stability should be more for giving the better performance. That is meant by this stable nanofluid. That is important. So again, this slide represents the illustration as per the previous slide. Nanoparticles are added in a base fluid. Then, with the help of ultrasonication, we need to have a its unit. We need to increase its stability. Besides the surface treatment, okay, and then we have a stable nanofluid with enhanced thermal properties. That is referred to as a nanofluid. Typical thermal conductivities of diverse conventional fluids and solid materials which are exist in the market and on which a lot of research is going on. What are those material? What is the range of its thermal conductivity? That study, preliminary study is becoming very, very important and wide. The material includes alumina, Al2O3, aluminum nitrile, boron nitride nanotubes. So, depending upon this particular material, thermal conductivity range is mentioned. So, before taking a study of nanofluid into account, we need to also carefully see its thermal conductivity value when they exhibit at that particular level of size, that are length. So, at that length, what is its property? That where I'm going to use it. Suppose I am going to use that nanofluid in a thermal management of the system. So in the thermal management system, its thermal conductivity value is very important. And why we are talking about this and what is this slide particularly represents what I told you. If we are going to convert cheaper raw material into a finished good product via various processes, heat management is very, very important. The control of heat is very, very important. Or you can say the transfer of heat at specific desired rate for converting this cheaper raw material into a finished good product is very, very becomes vital and important. That is why this particular nanofluids become a very important solution towards that particular step. So material that are used, that alumina is having 31 to 41 watt per meter Kelvin thermal conductivity. Aluminum nitrile is having 319 to 550. Boron nitrile 600. cobalt oxide 12 to 12.1, copper oxide 76, silicon carbide, zinc oxide 40. If you see the thermal conductive value of liquid, see the thermal conductivity value of graphene. If you look at bottom, graphene is having very good thermal conductivity, 3000. Then the single wall carbon nanotubes is having a very good thermal conductivity range. If you see multi-wall carbon nanotubes, it having a thermal conductivity range of 3000. So in this particular way, the material can be used for thermal management as far as the production system is concerned. And if you see the water, ethylene glycol and engine oil thermal conductivity, very less. But we can increase thermal conductivity of water, ethylene glycol and oil up to a specific mark by incorporating this particular material which have a very great conductivity, and that is why the nanofluids applications are becoming very important and vital, right? I will also share with you our common example in day-to-day life. If we see our bike and our car, so it uses viscous oil inside the system, and the external surfaces protrudes. If you see the bike's engine, we uses oil, right? So as to have a good performance of our bike, means it should start fast, and while switch off the bike engine, it should cool fast, means it should heat fast and it should cool fast. But as far as oil is concerned, reverse trend. Okay, oil takes much more time to heat and oil takes much more time to cool. So what is to be done, you know? So in bike you must have seen the external surfaces are protrudes. Where that oil tank is there, you must have seen the external surfaces are protrudes. So that is basically in heat transfer processes, it is referred to as a fin arrangement. It is referred to as a fin arrangement. That particular arrangement is made because the oil should get cool fast, or the engine should get cool fast, and it should get heat fast, so that the bike should give you the good performance. This is very important. So in that case also, nanofluid is a one part important solution, because protrudement of external surfaces through external surfaces becoming a very costly affair, because the designing of fins and the designing of these types of external surface, protrudement of external surfaces becoming very costly affair. So nowadays that particular arrangement replaced. Second important application of nanofluid, I am telling, in the mobile itself or in your computer itself, the fan is employed at the back end of your machine. That fan, whatever excessive heat is being generated, that fan is taken out that heat and increase your system performance. So how much heat energy fan is giving out to the atmosphere? No, sometimes you feel that your system gets hangs. Sometimes you feel that your system gets hangs, your mobile gets hangs. Why your mobile get hangs? Because of improper thermal management. You are using lot of applications in the mobile, but you are not giving sufficient time, or the uh, person or the company who have produced that mobile or that system have not properly designed that particular mobile and incorporated these types of nanofluid system to that mobile. So there is thermal mismanagement. So mobile becomes hangs if it gets heated by a lot of use. So nowadays micro channeling is the concept which is used in electronic system also, which is pumped nano fluids one time, seal it. So whatever heat management is there, so nanoparticles is accepting that heat, and due to the Brownian motion and the Brownian motion and other properties of novel properties of nanofluid, it carries that heat to the atmosphere to the external surface wall of the mobile or computer or any other system. So these types of lot of applications we can talk about. Let us see the preparation of nanofluid. As far as the preparation of nanofluid is concerned, one can ask that, sir, how can we prepare nanofluid? There is one-step method and two-step method. If we describe the methods for the preparation of nanofluid, the methods are divided into two parts. One-step method, two-step method. Again, one-step method is subdivided into three parts: direct evaporation condensation, chemical vapor deposition, single-step chemical synthesis. And two-step method, we can prepare nanofluid using two-step method with the help of these three factors: physical, chemical, laser ablation. So laser technique basically, if suppose you wanted to prepare Ag deionized water nanofluid, so Ag is not it is very difficult to handle and to prepare nanofluid. So laser technique is very important. So to ablate Ag into the DI water, the laser treatment is necessary. So laser is basically ablating Ag into the DI water, and then we can formulate a nanofluids. So one-step method, what happens in one-step method? The dispersion and production of nanoparticles occur in the same step. In one step, we can have a reaction, via reaction or via physical interlinkage or via physical readjustment, we can have a one-step method, synthesis of a nanofluid. So what happens in one-step method? Dispersion and production of nanoparticles occurs in this particular step. So simultaneously, dispersion and production of nanoparticle occurs. In two-step method, the nanoparticles, nanotubes, nanofiber, and nanorods are firstly prepared. So in two-step method, first we will prepare the nanoparticles, whatever form they may be, as per your choice of operation or convenience, what you can use, where you have to use, at what thermal management, up to what level you are requiring that. Depending upon you choose material, whether it is nanoparticle, whether it has nanotubes, whether it has nanofiber, whether nanorods, so that you are going to synthesize in the first step with the help of many other available techniques. For example, sol gel, right? Chemical many techniques are there. Chemical precipitate techniques will be there. Any other technique, laboratory method, or microemulsions, or hydrothermal synthesis, or any other technique. You have to first prepare it, and then you have to disperse that particular prepared nanoparticles into a base fluid with the help of ball milling, high shearing mixing, ultrasonic agitation, or intensive magnetic force agitation, depending upon the particles, depending upon the base fluid, and depending upon the situation. So we can illustrate two-step method by also providing one important figure and systematically explain nanoparticle synthesizer. Suppose it is there, machine is there, suppose. So what it will take a nanoparticle first, then it will mix with the another liquid nanoparticle plus base fluid. So either you mixed it, either you stir it by a propeller or impeller or something like that, or either you just use ultrasonication. If suppose it's difficult to mix, suppose some two, if it is a heterogeneous system, so some heterogeneous components are very essentially it is very difficult to mix. So sometime ultrasonication is important, but you have to take a care that ultrasonication sometimes creates a local heating. So that particular local heating will give you adverse effect of aggregating or agglomeration of the particles. Again, it will give you the reverse effect. So simultaneous cooling system has to be employed when ultrasonication at a certain frequency is employed for the production of nanofluids. And also uh, ultrasonication should be employed continuous mode or pulse mode. That is also very important. Sometimes the people are preferring pulse mode because the local heating may be minimized. Local heating may be minimized, and ultrasonic is also giving cavitation effect. So homogeneously it can produce your stable nanofluid. Second is, suppose one nanoparticle is there, one base fluid is there, both are mixed together, dispersant added is added, ultrasound is there, and then you can have a nanofluid. So this is something a two-way process. So uh, this is what is this title for this? As far as the cooling mechanisms are concerned, we have already seen cooling mechanisms are concerned. Uh, we have heat transfer in cooling processes can be found in many industrial area. So cooling processes are employed heat transfer management in industrial area by conventional methods. So what they are doing basically, they are increasing flow rates or cooling rates by extended surfaces such as fin. So you must have observed that for having a cooling more cooling rate, extended surfaces such as fins, that what I have talked about in previous slides, giving you examples of our bike. So extended surfaces, that is such as fins, protrudements of external surfaces, to increase this surface area to volume ratio. Because once there is an increase in surface area to volume ratio, there will be more heat transfer, because the conduction phenomena basically occurs molecular to molecular. If suppose molecular arrangement is more, if it provides the more surface area to volume ratio, it may giving cooling faster. And second aspect is increasing flow rates. Then this conventional method have their own limitations, because fins, what we talked about, extended surfaces, is undesirably increase in the thermal management system's size. And increasing flow rates will increase the pumping power. Increase the pumping power will lead to increase the cost of the equipment. So that is also undesirable. So there is an immediate need for new and innovative concepts to achieve ultra high performance cooling. So we would suggest nanofluids are promising to meet and enhance the challenges. Now, if you could see your word presentation, if you could see your optical brightener devices for presenting the things. So microelectronics, smaller features, if smaller features are there, if you are synthesizing a small component and fast operating speed, then thermal load is increasing on it. So previously the computers were big, previously our mobile phones were big, right? But now it becomes very smaller, but simultaneously their thermal loads are also increasing on the same. So increasing thermal load will decrease its performance. Suppose transportation, higher power engines, lighter radiator or fuel economy. If you take a lighting, so brighter optical devices will hamper its performance when thermal load will increase. Utilization of solar energy for power generation is very important application. If thermal load is increased, that particular solar device will not work and give their performances. So there is immediate need to solve this, and I suppose I'm working on this particular field, and in this particular field, and my research scholars are also day night engaging their research in these fields, and propose so many publications, and comes to the conclusion that the nanofluid is one of the most powerful alternative to these applications. As far as definition is concerned, we have seen definition many times, so we'll skip this slide. Why nanofluids? The suspended particles increase the surface area and the So why nanofluids basically? This is important slide. The suspended particle increases surface area and the heat capacity of the fluid. What previously in the fluid, this particular two aspects was missing. The suspended nanoparticle increase the effective thermal conductivity The interaction and collision amongst particle, fluid, and the flow passage surface very intensified. The mixing fluctuations, that is called eddy formation, and turbulence of the fluids are intensified. The dispersion of nanoparticle flattens the transverse temperature gradient. So if the temperature gradient of input and output is more, so it is a problematic for the transfer of heat. Chemical engineers can very well understand, even mechanical engineers can very well understand this particular effect of heat transfer. The question comes, why nanoparticles are better than microparticles? If you see this slide is very, very important slide. Suppose these are the heat exchangers. And you know, heat exchangers are employed in chemical industry or any process industry, not only chemical, process industry for the production processes, where the transfer of heat at certain desired rates are becoming very, very vital. So sometimes the industry refers to as we are using coolant, novel coolant or something like that. Coolant is nothing but nanofluids, right? So this is the difference why nanoparticles are better than microparticles. If you see both the figures, these are the down figure. If you see, this is the heat exchanger, and in heat exchanger, microparticles have most of their atoms are beneath the surface. So this particular microparticles have their atoms far beneath the surface, that they cannot impart their heat energy to this surface. This surface is absent from accepting this energy, heat energy, and so they could not participate in the heat transfer. So that is basically lacuna in using the microparticles. But if you see nanoparticles, and this particular slide is clearly stating that nanoparticles have about 20% of their atoms near the surface. That means they can impart their heat energy to the wall of the heat exchanger, and from the wall of heat exchanger, it exchanging its heat energy to the atmosphere with convection mode. With convection mode. So that is why nanoparticles are better than microparticles, because they creates a thermal management inside the system, and this thermal management is very, very responsible for the higher rate of transfer of heat into the system. So difference created by nanoparticles, four important way, which are very, very important. So gravitational force become negligible and electromagnetic force become dominant. Why gravitational force? So if the particle is micro and it settle down, so it won't have that effect of transfer of heat, right? But it may settle down, so it will exhibit its effect to that particular place only. So gravitational force becomes negligible and electromagnetic force becomes dominant. Quantum mechanics is the model used to describe motion and energy instead of classical mechanical model. Greater surface to area, greater surface area to volume ratio is the prime important factor, and random molecular motion becomes very, very important. That is also referred to as the Brownian motion, is very, very important. So what basically nanofluid features and what are their properties? Size does matter. So unique transport properties nanofluids, nanoparticles are having. Size does matter because they have a unique transport properties. We can transport it very easily. We can allow them to transfer due to their own characteristics feature into the system. Different from conventional suspension, do not settle under gravity, do not block the flow. It enhances functions and properties by combining and controlling instructions. It combining different nanoparticle structure size in different base fluids with additives. It controlling interactions using different mixing methods and thermal flow, catalyst, and other field conditions. So the nanofluids possesses such a wonderful features and properties, that size is very important, that nano is there, which enhances function by combining and controlling. It combining with reference to their structure size in different base fluids with additives. In controlling, it controlling interactions using different mixing methods. So there's a lot many things we can do with the system to have the effect. As far as concept of nanofluid is concerned, as far as concept of nanofluid is concerned, the thermal conductivity value with reference to the material is, you can see the thermal conductivity of organic material, that means melamine, this melamine resin, urea formaldehyde, then octadecane, and then tetradecane, water, ethylene glycol, mineral oil is very low. If you see the organic material and heat transfer fluid, the thermal conductivity is value is very good, so cannot be used in energy systems. But if you see the metal, right from Cu, Al, zinc, nickel, silicon, ferrous, cupric oxide, zinc oxide, Al2O3, metal and metal oxides possesses high value of thermal conductivity, and that is the reason why we should use this particular material. Uh, and the carrier, like water, ethylene glycol, mineral water, for various applications of in energy, and which is referred to as heat transfer fluid, right? So what are, you can say, advantage and disadvantage of one and two step method? This is very important, that unless we know the advantage and disadvantage of one and two way method, we should not go ahead for synthesis purpose, and then application is already hampered about. So as far as the property is concerned, stability of nanofluid is concerned, stability is referred to as a very high in one step synthesis method, and in two step synthesis method it is not so high. It can be achieved high by adding surfactant, by adding reactant and surfactant, by adjusting pH, right? It can be achieved high by using various means, that is ultrasonication at different time interval, ultrasonication effect, their intensity of ultrasound. So various factors are responsible for that. So as far as two-step method is concerned, we need to achieve stability. As far as agglomeration, agglomeration means settle down or to um, um, agglomerate with other particles to increase its size. So in one-step method, agglomeration is low, but agglomeration can be controlled in the two-way method, two-step method. Large quantity production, as far as one-step method is there. So this is basically the simultaneous operation of dispersion and addition. So the uh, quantity-wise production in one-step method is low, and in two-step method is high. That means we can generate high amount of nanoparticle, and we can have high amount of fluid, and leading towards the large quantity production as far as the advantages is concerned of two-step method. The particle uniformity is very low in two-step method. Suppose the calcium carbonate paste is dispensed into a deionized water, so that is something referred to as a one-step method, and to form a calcium carbonate based water-based nanofluid. So how uniformity is possible? No, because we are not using external means. We need to use external means to have a particle uniformity. We need to control that particular process, like a sol gel or other processes. We are controlling for having a specific structure and sizes. We are controlling the process and leading to have a particle uniformity. Quick process, as far as quick process is concerned, one step is very low quick, that means a slow process, and two step is very much quicker process, because directly we need to add, after having a surface treatment or modifications or whatever, by various way we can treat the solid and liquid, and quickly we can combine it. Dispersion is also high. Dispersion is very high in case of one step method, but in case of two step method, the dispersion is very, very, very low. Brownian motion, as you know, Brownian motion is the random molecular movement. We already described that. So we should skip this slide. So as far as particle is concerned, if the particle is possesses the fast Brownian motion, or the random molecular movement becomes fast, it may exhibit into a good heat transfer property. And if you see, this is the molecule is wandering here and there in various directions because of Brownian motion. But Brownian motion is possesses, if you see the effects on the nanoparticles, right? Right. The Brownian motion is always on the particles which are in the size range of nano and onwards, right? So this is very important. Practical application approach of the nanofluid. So nanofluid, what are the practical approach? That means what, how should be our nanofluid? So nanofluid should be stable. If it is a good stable, it is giving a good thermal conductivity. If the good thermal conductivity is high, it's then next parameters needs to check is it should have a low viscosity. If it is having a low viscosity, it should have a high heat transfer coefficient. If it should have a high transfer coefficient, it is an effective heat transfer fluid. Then and then only we can use that particular fluid for a practical applications. If these all properties or characteristics features are absent, so we need to fabricate. So why fabrication word? It's not a fabrication like, like we fabricate a metal or something like that. But fabrication of nanofluid refers the production of nanofluids with reference to these ideal points and to optimize that particular points like particle composition, particle concentration, particle morphology, practical crystal structure, base fluid, stability, surface modifier, temperature, all these needs to be taken into consider, optimized, and then the nanofluid fabrication is there if suppose this particular is mentioned, and then only we can use it for other applications. Now, as far as the application explored in my laboratory by my research scholars till date, we have explored nanofluids for various applications. From my research scholars have only taken data up to 2018, but this continuous process up to 2020 also. Our research, lot of research papers are there, and we have explored a lot of applications that my one of the research scholars have not added. But still, a lot of applications are there. Right from shell and tube heat exchanger we have used. We have published papers, various nanoparticles, cuprous oxide TiO2 water for convective heat transfer coefficient, enhancement. Then Al2O3 water ethylene glycol we have used. Then Al2O3 Fe2O3 Q plus water we have used for very important application, critical heat flux. Critical heat flux nowadays is a very vital applications, and that is being used in various fields. So these are also we have explored. Then plate type heat exchanger we have used. Then we have studied thermal conductivity in so many papers. We have studied the data and published this data. Then these are the paper concentric tube heat exchanger. We have used our nanotubes for thermal conductivity operation. So nowadays the passion, or you can say, is to have a hybrid nanofluid. The passion is to use the hybrid nanofluid for various effects to exhibit for that particular application, right? So hybrid nanofluids are prepared either by dispensing dissimilar nanoparticles. So name suggests that the two particles which we are collaborating with each other will have a dissimilarities in nature. So dispensing dissimilar nanoparticles as individual constituents or by dispensing composite particles in the base fluid. The nanoparticles are synthesized separately and then dispersed in base fluid to form nanofluid. Hybrid nanofluids may possess better thermal network and rheological properties due to synergistic effect. So this particular is very important. Synergistic effect basically talked about the non-linear cumulative effect. So linear effect is something different. Synergistic effect is non-linear cumulative effect of the two or more active particles with more outcome of their activities. So once they are in synergistic effect into the system, they can collaborate, combine together, move here and there, and forming a thermal bridging type of mechanism. And they will move with the help of Brownian motion, and with their all properties inside the system and have a synergistic effects. So that is what the novelty of hybrid nanofluid is. As far as the hybrid nanoparticles are concerned, scientists are using various particles and combining them together for, for various applications to used in different fields. So you can see the lot of families of hybrid nanoparticles are concerned, and combinations are given, that what combinations you can use. So these are certainly explored by many scientists. uh, 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 we have also explored many combinations of such particles for different types of effects in thermal management and energy involvement, energy management. Applications of nanofluid, if concerned, it improved the thermal conductivity. Okay, first application is thermal conductivity that we have already discussed. In what way it increased thermal conductivity? That the graph itself stated that along with the temperature, the material undergoes increment of thermal conductivity if the material change, particle change, and temperature change. So you see, uh, at 50 degrees centigrade, that means thermal movement become very important. And once it gains the thermal movement, it automatically also leads towards the increment of thermal conductivity. So this particular equipment I wanted to introduce how to measure thermal conductivity of nanofluid. General thermal conductivity phenomena is a solid phenomena, because particle to particle heat transfer takes place, and the particles which are physically connected with each other without displacement from their fixed position. So thermal conductivity is exhibiting into solid only, where the particles are physically attached with each other, but not displaced from their fixed position, is something referred to as thermal. But you will ask me that, sir, you are talking about nanofluid. It's a liquid, and how thermal conductivity is exhibiting? Yeah, because when you take a nanofluid, nanoparticles are moving into the system like a with the help of Brownian motion, and it's get collaborated with the liquid molecules, and one molecule is collaborated with one liquid molecule, and so on, and they are forming a thermal bridges and contact, tight system inside the system. And due to that, one particle of solid along with liquid and with the neighbor particle and so on is attaching with the physical form, and then it transport the heat from it. Let us go very fast because we have to cover a lot many. Solar is very important aspect. The thermal conductivity is of various kinds of nanofluid with influence of particle concentration. So thermal conductivities may be also increased, with the help of magnetic field, because it forms a chain like a structure under magnetic field, and which helps in carrying thermal heat into the system. As far as this is very important application, importance of solar energy is concerned. Basically, with these activities, vehicle waste product, so the carbon and sulfur amount is deposited in the atmosphere, which pollutes the atmosphere, and these values are by using vehicles and waste product, we are liberating carbon and sulfur, and we are polluting atmosphere is around 8 billion tons. From fossil fuels, 6.5 million tons, and deforestation and forest firing, we are producing a pollutants up to 1.5 million tons. So if you see this effect and values, so there is a scope in alternative renewable energy like a solar cell. So I'm talking about the application of nanofluids in the solar cell, because it is also very greenery approach and green synthesis approach towards the energy management and production of energy system. So, as far as you see the scenario of the world, the total, and in India, this is the scenario in India, the total installed capacity of production of energy in India is from 2016. In 2016, it has been observed by survey that, the 50% production of energy is via burning of coal. So it's not green approach, it's not viable. By wind, 15% energy has been produced. By solar, 16% only produced. And renewable energy, with wind, tidal, and all types of renewable energy, if you could see, only 42% of energy is being produced. In 2017, fortunately, we woke up, and gradually this burning of coal and production of energy becomes less, and these all factors gradually increased because of awareness, and a lot of research took place in India. Then in the year of 2018, 2019 data is not possesses with me, but the use of renewable energy, which includes the solar, also is becoming very, very high. So classification of solar energy, basically, solar energy is classified into two parts. One is passive and one is active. So active energy, passive energy, then how we will see it into the next slide. The active part of solar energy is also classified into two types. One is solar thermal, one is photovoltaic. So this solar thermal is again concentrated to solar thermal, right? Concentrated solar thermal. That means the device has been made to concentrate all the radiations together and to generate the energy. And photovoltaic is, what is photovoltaic? Basically, that we are going to see, the radiations are converted into electrical energy, that is with the help of cell, right? So this is something photovoltaic, and it is also classified into a crystalline and thin film. So let us see first what is passive solar energy, because solar energy is classified into passive solar energy and active solar energy. Passive solar energy is a method in which solar energy is harnessed in its direct form without using any mechanical devices. So you can say, as a layman, previously doing drying clothes in a daylight is an example of using solar energy passively. So passive solar energy has few applications. So previously, the buildings designed were in such a fashion that to have a light of the atmosphere inside their homes, and so in such a fashion they designed their households and their offices and all other things to directly have a light of sunlight inside. Some cooling arrangement are also incorporated by the human beings to have a passive solar cooling. So they used to employ the coolers, or you can say the curtains of made up of different thermally insulated material, and also incorporated some white spaces so that the aeration should not also affect. That is referred to as a passive solar cooling. And passive solar heating is generally common to have a thermal mass inside the house, and to attract all the sunlights to it via glass, so that glass is accepting the sunlight radiation, and this thermal mass is generating or storing intense radiation, and storing heat into it, and then later on they are heating the room. This is something like that. So in this way, the passive solar energy concept was defined. As far as active solar concept is there, so solar thermal is the radiations received which are transformed into heat. It is commonly used for the water heater, space heating, and energy production. And what is photovoltaic? In which solar energy is transferred into electrical energy. So these two together, if you combine together PV and this T, so this system is very famous, PVT. So application of nanofluid into a PVT system is nowadays becomes a very, very challengeable job, and study is very, very important to analyze or the efficiently increase the performance of the photovoltaic cell. So the use of PV, that is photovoltaic, along with thermal, is referred to as a PVT system. So in the 1970s, research started to focus on combining solar thermal design and photovoltaic system into one design system, that is known as photovoltaic thermal solar collector. Photovoltaic solar collector. And benefits of using this photovoltaic thermal collector is to increase of photovoltaic cell effectiveness. So we can effectively increase its effectiveness, in which they can be frequently cooled through nanofluids as a coolant, right? because if you do not cool it, it will overheat and it will lose its effectiveness or performance, and ultimately leads to the decrement of production of electrical energy. So this is something like that. So the performance of or efficiency of system needs to be increased. So increased via the extraction of heat, unnecessary heat through it, so that it will be again ready for the next operation to accept the solar radiations or having a energy of electrical kind and store it. So uh, so solar energy is basically these are the tapping means devices are used from solar energy. So solar collectors are there, PVT is there. Just now we have discussed this PVT. Our focus is PVT. Why? Because nowadays this is very, very important. This is photovoltaic, which uses cell inside along with the solar thermal system. Then another solar point is there. Thermal energy storage is also there. Solar steels are there. Solar steels are basically solar heaters. As far as mine idea is concerned, nowadays what we are heating due to directly had to have a solar radiation and to heat the water is also falling under this example. Then solar collectors are also classified into various kinds: flat plate solar collector, direct absorption solar collector, parabolic through solar collector, evacuated tube solar collector, and solar steel is again classified single stroke solar collector, double. So because why this classification has been made to just have all the incident radiation of solar energy to have to give the good performance, to give the good performance. As far as application of nanofluid in PVT system is there, so we have seen now what is PVT. So this is the PV cell. On the PV cell top, there is a glass surface where it accepts the radiation. And if suppose this heated a lot, so that it won't give so the efficiency decreases of the PV cell. So in order to increase its efficiency, we need to extract unnecessary heat which is generated with this particular PV cell, and needs to extract out immediately. So nanofluid needs to be circulate at one end, so that it will exchange its heat and take on the unnecessary heat which hampers its performance to the outside of that unit. And this is referred to as heat sink here, from where the unnecessary hampering performance of the PV cell heat is taken out with the help of nanofluid, and allows it to increase its efficiency for further operation again. So this is basically the another way to express the same idea, that working idea of using a nanofluid. So this is a surface glass cover. This is PV cell. This is absorber, and this is copper pipe where the nanofluid is pumped, right? This is insulation. This is basically adiabatically designed in such a way that no energy will be get lost from that, and the unnecessary energy which hampers to produce the electricity through it is taken out or exchanged with the help of nanofluid, and is taken out and increase the performance of the PVT cell. This is something efficiency of nanofluids based solar collectors. So there is a solar collector, transparent surface is there, whatever solar radiations is there. So it is we can have a heat into it, and if it mostly heated, then that heat is taken out with the help of nanofluids. The external surface is adiabatic, and the efficiency is calculated with the help of this formula. Use pull gain upon availability of energy, that leads to be MCP delta T upon the area of reflector and the solar normal direct radiation, right? So these are the optimization of parameters, you can say, for uh, uh, produce solar energy by using nanofluids in PVT systems. Basically, if we combine together nanofluids with solar collector, so we need to take care of these parameters, or you can say in the another word, we need to optimize these parameters, uh, uh, that density of the nanofluid, specific heat of the nanofluid, thermal conductivity of the nanofluid, viscosity of the nanofluid should be in a optimized way. And as far as the testing of solar collector is concerned, ambient temperature, collector plate temperature, fluid inlet temperature, fluid outlet temperature, pressure loss between inlet and outlet, intensity of solar modular radiation, angle of inclination and solar modular mass flow rate. These all parameters needs to be optimized to have a good performance, and that performance output parameters are nothing but whether useful gain in energy is there, combining these two systems, whether thermal efficiency of flat plate solar collector is good, whether entropy generation rate is good, pumping power was proper, exergy destruction is there, then reduction in size of collector is there. So these all parameters becomes very, very vital uh, while combining the nanofluids and solar collector together. Now let us take a case study what we perform in our laboratory in VNIT at VNIT, that there is a comparative evaluation, performance evaluation of fly ash based hybrid nanofluid uh, in microchannel based direct absorption solar collector. So microchannels we have developed at around 800 micrometric uh, uh, size in between. So this microchannel helps in improve the performance of this solar collector. So our objective was to study the effects of the concentration of silica and alumina. We have used this silica and alumina in fly ash, right? So this was a hybrid nanoparticles which is incorporated into a base fluid. So we have incorporated silica and alumina nanoparticle along with fly ash in the base fluid, and and the flow rate of working fluid in direct absorption solar collector. So we analyze the thermal efficiency, pumping power, performance evaluation criteria, entropy generation rate, pumping power, exergy efficiency calculated to evaluate the thermal and exergy performance of the collector. So this prototype we have developed, prototype flat plate solar collector, and this is an insulator basically. So top portion was the glass to accept the all incident radiation into it, and these were the specification of our prototype. So we have carried out the experimentation. We pumped our nanofluids to our assembly, which is referred to as a test section, and we allow solar radiations to fall onto the top surface to heat the surface, and then we allowed our nanofluid. Nanofluid is a coolant material basically. So we used to accept the energy of the radiation of the solar, basically to exchange that heat with the nanofluid, and to get output of heated nanofluid, and to use this nanofluid into a double pipe heat exchanger for further production process in chemical industry. So the natural source of energy radiation we have exchanged that energy with the use of our nanofluids, and we have used that particular heat energy for the production purpose for converting cheaper raw material into a finished good product. So there is no burning of coal, there is no burning of gas, there is no burning of anything, no pollution, nothing else, only exchange of solar radiation heat to the heat exchanger, and use that heat exchanger for the chemical production process is something a very important and vital aspects as far as green process synthesis is concerned, which we suppose. We have calculated thermal efficiency with the help of the already existing formula relationships, and pressure drop, pumping power, and performance evaluation criteria as far as this study is concerned. And we, uh, we observed that the uh, efficiency with reference to fly ash and silicon incorporation, right? See, absorbed energy parameters are there. So thermal efficiency increases with the decrease in the silica nanoparticles in hybrid nanofluids of silica and fly ash, while in the case of alumina of fly ash based you can see nanofluid, the solar collector efficiency increases with an increase in the alumina nanoparticles. So this is because alumina nanoparticles have a less specific heat, right? Less specific heat. So less specific heat means less number of calories or heat to raise the temperature. So it uses less specific heat compared to fly ash and silica nanoparticles. Thus, they can absorb heat quicker than the silica nanoparticles. So these were our invention through this one. As far as second system is concerned, so there also we find that alumina nanoparticles have less specific heat compared to the fly ash and silica nanoparticles. Thus, they can absorb heat quicker than the silica nanoparticles.
Yes, நெய் வாசனை அடிக்குது. எதுக்கு நெய்யெல்லாம் போட்டா? நெய்யில தான் ஒட்டுது.
As far as this particular slide is concerned, though we should have a less pumping power. So less pumping power basically decrease the cost of the system. So we have tried that we have analyzed the less pumping power ratio with fluid, and we have seen that the silica needs less pumping power due to the less density and less viscosity, leads towards the saving the cost of this particular project. Performance evaluation criteria, as far as it is there, performance evaluation criteria. So alumina is more efficient than silica in performance evaluation criteria is concerned, because heat transfer rate dominates the friction factor. Heat transfer rate dominates the friction factor. So we conclude that though alumina needs more pumping power, though alumina based nanofluids more pumping power, it gives better performance than silica based nanofluid. It gives better performance than silica based nanofluid. So that is what our observation through this study. As far as this slide is concerned, we want entropy less for this system at low flow rate. We want very less entropy at very low flow rate. So at low flow rate, there is less turbulency, so leads towards giving a good performance. As far as the highest the exergy you can say, let me tell you, the exergy is inversely proportional to entropy generation. So we want basically exergy decreases as entropy increases. So we desired higher exergy for this particular one, decreasing entropy. So that also we have achieved as far as this is concerned. So challenges of nanofluid, scale up capacity is becomes very important. So this is a challenge, but we can overcome this challenge, no problem. Surfactant problems may be solved, but this still. So this slide basically is the oldest slide. A few factors we have already overcome and removed the challenges. Nanofluids cost is so less. Interfacial layering is also tackled. So we conclude that the nanofluid is a sustainable alternative for the environment. It is a green processes for low cost use of heat management. Also, we have seen the thermal systems or PVD systems. So I end up my presentation. I will just introduce that these are the research scholars awarded their PhD under my guidance: Rohit Khedkar, Mangesh Wagmare, Abhijit Gade, Ghanshyam Burman. So these people's, Sarita is in Australia. She is associated in international very good reputed college. Nishant Kumar is in multinational industry. Antaram Sarve is in one National Institute of Technology as a faculty. Ghanshyam Burman is associated in as a faculty. Abhijit is also working in a very good position in one multinational industry. He was very good in statistical. Mangesh is a HOD. I don't know. Basically, he's a HOD, but now I think promoted as a principal of one engineering college. Rohit Khedkar is a faculty of Priyadarshini Engineering College, Nagpur. So all my research scholars have awarded PhD 7, and they are serving the nations through various institutions. Currently, we have a very energetic and enthusiastic research scholars. All smiling faces you can observe. Malika, very energetic and efficient in exploring the various applications of nanofluids. So she's working on hybrid uh, nanofluid systems, and for which she is now exploring the hybrid nanofluids application in wastewater treatment. Then she is going to explore its application in lubrication purpose in oil systems. Then she is going to explore various tremendous applications for her PhD completion. And this fellow Parag is always laughing and very energetic, enthusiastic, And both my research scholars, Parag is also, whatever, lead to tell him, he's immediately doing all the activities and very good in research. He has published till date 2 research papers, 3 book chapters. He is engaging in writing 1 book. Malika has also communicated 3-4 research publications in SCI leading journals. So very soon she will also come up with concrete publication. And this fellow is myself, who is always boring them, telling them a tedious work. These are the references. I don't know why my research scholars have not incorporated my references here. Actually, I'm working a lot in nanofluids. So I will ask Malika why she has not included. So thank you very much. If you have any question, please post the question. I think in the chart I could have seen. Yeah, what are the key issues and challenges for nanofluids? Yeah, so key issues and challenges for nanofluid we have already discussed, that dispersibility, homogeneity, then Brownian motion is very important. Sometimes the material gets agglomerate. Sometimes aggregations lump are formed that needs to be tackled for the better performances. So these are the challenges. Then comments are very good. Thank you very much, all participants, for the good comments. Hope you like this lecture. What are the drawbacks of shortcoming of nanofluid? Yeah, drawback is uh, uh, you know drawback is something talked about. The drawback, there is no drawback of nanofluid basically. Nanofluid is very powerful fluid nowadays, which is being used. So industry people are not exposing that they are using nanofluids. They only anytime tell us that we are using novel fluid. But what are novel fluid? They are never exposing. So that novel fluid is nothing but the nanofluids. What is the reason that atoms in nanomaterials are near the surface compared to micro? Yeah. What is the reason? One question: what is the reason that atoms in nanomaterials are, because of Brownian motion? Because of Brownian van der Waals motion, random molecular motion, they are near the surface. Why nanoparticle range from 1 to 100 nanometer itself? Why not beyond? This is basically the scale changing. So if you go beyond 100, so scale is changing. So scale is not remaining nano. It is going towards micro, right? That is why the only particles which are ranging in between 1 to 100 nanometer are referred to as a nanometer. So today we can reach up to 1 nanometer. In future, there is one question that today we can reach up to 1 nanometer. In future, we'll be advancing towards more Lee. Something typographical mistake is there. So the definition of nano is still below. Yeah, it is still below 100 nanometer. So, so dear participants, I am hoping that you must have enjoyed my session, and I must not have bored you during this tedious session, because I have stretched you, beyond 1:30. So thank you very much for listening me. I hope that this particular lecture will be very useful in your career of research. In fact, to start a new research, this is a very uh, a focused topic, and a lot of things can be explored. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Margaonkar sir. I think you are also there. I'm very happy that you listened me today. Thank you very much, all professors, madams, the respected peoples, and research scholars. Thank you. We'll meet again at 2:30. Thank you very much.